Turn the clock on the way back. I wonder if she'll take me back. I'm thinking in a brand new way. Turn the clock to 0, sister. You'll never know how much I miss you. I'm starting up a brand new day. Turn the clock to 0, boss. The river's wide, we'll swim across me. Starting up a brand new day.
Dan RadioStyle. Hope everybody out there is enjoying themselves. Obviously, we've got a lot of very exciting things going on in the world. I don't know if you guys are necessarily always following the same stuff that I tend to. Maybe not. That's probably why some of this junk seems interesting. But needless to say, we're going to get right into that. The business, of course, got to cover that. Spirit Radio Dan Style at gmail.com if you want to try to get in touch with me. Otherwise, of course, you're listening to Spirit Radio, or I'm sorry, this is Dan Radio Style is my channel. Let's get these facts correct, huh? Would that not be a good idea? And the music, in fact, was the title track of Sting's CD called Brand New Day. It kind of has to do with love, but the concept was really around the whole idea of a brand new day, because I honestly do believe that this is what we've got going on. So this is going to be slightly different today. One, I mean, it's normal to start with music, but two, I kind of recorded a little like minute and a half or whatever, so like, I don't know, a week ago, because I was like, kind of, it hit me, like this idea, and I'm like, I got to record this. So I have like a little thing on my phone called Dictadroid, and I'm kind of able to dictate into it, if you will. So instead of trying to regurgitate it and write it on paper and do it, I just went ahead. I'm going to go ahead and play that part. So at some point here, I'm gonna play that, and then we'll talk more about what else is coming up. I kind of cover some of the basics for what I think is really going on this month, and to cover one other piece of information. So, like for the last 2 months, I've had a roommate that I didn't really want to have, but anyway, I was doing a favor and kind of helping someone out. And this individual just moved out yesterday, so it's huge, right? So I've had this amazing energy, and I would have done this show yesterday, but I didn't want that overwhelming happiness to come through on this. So again, we're doing the update for November 2015, and this is should be a very, very interesting month. To cover a couple of the very, very important basic parts of it. One, Thanksgiving. It's huge. One thing I want to remind everybody out there, and I think my little thing touches upon it too, that I'll play here in a second just to make sure we get it out of the way. But it's very important that we get that energy in our hearts, the thankfulness, the love that we feel for our fellow man, for our family, for those that are around us on this day. This day is meant to remind us of being thankful. It's meant to bring that energy back into the fold, back into our front burner kind of sense. The energy of being thankful is the fastest way to manifest anything in your life. So being grateful and thankful helps bring that forward. And the reason I bring all this up is because we are heading into a major turning point in society. As I kind of touch upon, I'm not sure where this crescendo lies, but I do believe it's coming up. So I'm going to get my little thing out of the way. I don't know, it's like a minute and a half, whatever. It was just me just kind of being live at the moment. And I'll play it, and then from there we'll kind of cover, I think, what some of the other stuff is that we've got coming up in this month. But I do believe this is going to be an exciting month. Still more of what we've been doing, kind of ramping up and all that, but this ramping concept almost doesn't even work anymore because it's gotten past that. It's gotten to the land of crazy for me in most cases, and I really do think we're being challenged frequently on how we can do more with less. I mean, really, like we really feel like it's getting to the point where so many things are bombarding us simultaneously, and we're having to process it all at the same time and still try to maintain some sort of level of normalcy or sort of decorum when we're dealing with each other or, whatever the case is. So an exciting month. I really am expecting some interesting things to happen this month, and I'll get into some of the specifics there because I'm definitely reading some interesting stuff, feeling some interesting stuff, and certainly getting experiences from some of my very close friends that would imply that we're also heading down this path. So let me get this little tidbit out of the way, and then we'll finish up with all the other goodies.
November really strikes me as an interesting month to pay attention to. I have no idea where the crescendo is. I truly don't. I don't know if there's a line in the sand. I don't know if there's a day when something happens. I don't know that. What I do know is things are building to something. And And I just, being a three-dimensional kind of soul, like you, like everyone else, what does that mean? Like, you can only build so far before something has to happen, right? Like a wave, eventually it builds and then it crusts finally. Or it crumbles and white waters down. But it doesn't just keep forming unless you're in the movies and it's about to take out your city because it's a 1,000-mile high thing, whatever. November's going to be an interesting month. Definitely a time to be thankful of. Maybe similar, I don't know. Like I said, it's building. It keeps building. And if I'm just describing my life to you all, and this is just a means, and that's why I've got 2 listeners, cool. Or if the 2 people that, listen are, on the same vibe and they're experiencing the same thing, cool. Or if there's 50 people that listen all of a sudden, okay, cool. But yeah, I'm just, this is what it feels like, man. I don't know what that means. I don't know what the frick that means. It's on YouTube here, right? So if I'm totally crazy, cool. There you go. I am a nut job. Don't ever believe me. Whacked out crazy dude. And if not, I don't know. I don't know what the hell it means. So there you go. That's what I'm pretty sure I'm going to experience because they've been kind of consistent in my world. Like I've been like, all right, I was close. It works. So whatever. There you go.
So anyway, obviously a huge difference in quality, which, is kind of a given. But we've got some major things coming up. And like I said, I felt inspired to talk about that. But there's a lot of evidence that is out there right now. And what I'm really trying to do, if anything, is I don't want anyone to just believe me outright. A few things. First off, a lot of the things that I come across and read, there's definitely some specific stuff that I've had them mention that's going to happen in the future. One, I'm never going to do that. I'm never going to, knock on wood, I'm never going to come out and say, on this date, something's going to happen. Guarantee, one, that I'm going to keep it from happening. And then two, it's going to severely complicate, I don't want to say credibility, but I don't want anyone to look to me as any sort of source of anything that you guys can't figure out yourself. So go online, look these things up because, again, like I said, there's a lot of evidence right now that disclosure, and I don't know how many of you out there, the 2 of you, like I like to joke, I don't know how many of you out there are even aware of what the concept of disclosure is. The concept of disclosure, to keep it very bland, is the revealing of information that we have not been made privy to. There's certainly all sorts of rumor and innuendo about a lot of these things. UFOs would be on that. Lost technologies, lost civilizations, even stuff that I've read that our understanding of the solar system and universe in general is skewed, or at least so what we are taught. The people that are able to kind of get outside of that lesson will oftentimes start to figure things out, and then that's how you can kind of sometimes get into, I think, some of these secret areas. But disclosure's happening. There is so much information right now that is flooding the web. One good search criteria that I've found to be very interesting, you're probably going to come across one, the dude's name, which is Corey Good, or Blue Avion. This seems to tie back to shows I've done in the past, one in particular, and my good friend Macy, when I was talking to her probably 2 weeks ago, the law of Ra or the law of one. Both of those will get you to the same location. This group that did this 2-year-long project, they channeled it. There was one guy that was doing the recording basically and taking notes, and one guy was basically asking the questions, and then the one lady was essentially channeling Ra or whatever. One of the most amazing things I've ever read. I read it a couple times. It is it's out there, but fantastic. So supposedly, and I kind of have to agree with at least the research that I've been doing so far, the Blue Avion seem to be a part of Ra. And Ra has come to this planet on numerous occasions, and so far, I want to say it's 5 times. I've got that stuck in my head. But supposedly out of the 5 times, the 5th being right now, the 4 of them, and one of them goes back to ancient Egypt. I think there's one even prior to that, and then I think there's been a handful of other times since. But everyone has deified them. So that has become like the key thing with them is we are no different than you. We are just bringing a message to you. This is very, very important in any of the stuff that you are looking for out there. If the people that you're listening to limit the size of the people that you can love, be close to, talk to, relate to, if they decrease the size of that audience, I would be leery or careful in believing their message. I am speaking, a great example is in some of the religious circles, and I'm not trying to pick on anybody, but this is just a really good example of one reason why I've kind of strayed, where they can say that a certain group of the population, let's use a real hotbed item right now, let's talk about homosexuals, right? In a lot of the very strong religions right now, homosexuality is not okay. That's not allowed. You are not allowed to be homosexual and part of the church. To me, that limits the size of your audience. God made us all, Source made us all, higher self has made us all. And I get that some people believe it's a choice, okay, but for everyone else that's actually ever gotten to know anyone that's gay and been able to ask them questions, you actually find out that it's far less of a choice than it would even be. It's not a choice. I mean, who would choose to go down this path and then be ridiculed, beat up, made fun of, and everything under the sun, just so you can experience what a heterosexual person experiences when they're with the opposite sex. That feeling of love, that feeling of joy, and that attraction that comes, that magic, that chemistry that you feel. So there's a great example of how sometimes in my mind certain groups really limit who's allowed to come into play. So again, I'm more about opening and expanding. We're all part of this. We're all together, and we're all growing and learning. So disclosure is a huge part of that. It's a huge part of that opening because we've been taught for so long that there is nothing else out there, that we're completely alone, that these technologies don't exist, that it's impossible to do this. But there's actually a lot of information that's starting to come out and has been for a couple months now that really implies that our understanding of things is definitely lacking a lot of knowledge. And this knowledge has been kept from us intentionally. There's been groups that have been in charge of this planet for many, many, many eons. We are taking that away from them. So one thing I'm also noticing, not just disclosure, but I'm seeing, and this has been happening for a while, especially as the fall of those that used to have the power, there's been a lot of threats made. A lot of threats that they're going to cause damage, they're going to ruin things, there's going to be attacks, there's stock market, whatever. I've seen all sorts of crazy stuff out there. These threats, although, yes, still happening, it has been a very long time since I've seen one of them successfully come to fruition. I can say there's probably only been 2 or 3 occasions where I've actually gone out and shared with anybody when there's been specific dates. And really, in those cases, it was more of a, like, I hope I'm wrong, and I hope by telling you I keep this from happening. I won't be doing that on this show because I think there's a credibility issue that messes with that, because the people that I've told it to are people that I'm very close and people that I know and people that I'm able to spend the time saying, look, I'm hoping this doesn't happen. That's why I'm telling it to you. I want to be wrong. I prefer to be wrong. Again, these things don't seem to be happening as often, though I see the threats, I'm hearing about them, and I'm following them, but they're not happening. These people are losing the power. I'm also seeing and noticing a lot of changes in some of the higher up positions on this planet. A lot of the representatives, like the Speaker of the House is a very good one that just recently changed. Other countries have been swapping out different people. There's been elections. There's been all these different things that have happening. There's been a number of people in some of the different countries that are kind of considered to be a little more on the darker side or part of this control, maybe responsible for some of the terrorism, certainly financing it to some degrees, maybe actually hiding large, vast sums of money, just all sorts of things. These things are all coming to light. All of this stuff is starting to become evident. So again, what the hell am I talking about right now? What I'm talking about is this is what November is bringing us, I think. I don't know if I don't know where the crescendo happens. I don't know if it's going to happen this month, next month. We're building to something, though. I am 100% sure we're building to something. I know there's enormous changes that are happening in my life. So I'm reasonably sure that's going to be reflected out on others. Like others are going to be experiencing very amazing changes in their life. Good ones, like things that you've been wanting and hoping and yearning for. Those experiences are coming to us. We're going to start to see these things come to us through this month. This month is going to be a really interesting and awesome month. Like I said, a lot of changes are coming, and I believe we're really going to start to see them this month. We're going to start to experience them. We're going to start to be more a part of the creative cycle. And so one of the most important things that I really want to leave everyone with, what's really important, one, get out there and kind of try to do some of this research. Look into some of this stuff. Look into raising your energy any way you can. Either studying the chakras, or getting out and studying energy dynamics, or finding a book that maybe helps you find love easier, or getting a book that maybe helps you be more positive with your child, or be more positive at your job. Anything that kind of helps start to slant you in a more positive direction. That gets you to start looking at the great things that are coming. Because there's a lot of negative news if you watch the news media. I mean, one of the first things any seriously spiritual student does is they disconnect from a lot of the media, from a lot of the news, from some of the radio, from the TV shows that are out there. Maybe you start watching Netflix all the time and you can control what you watch by that. But there's a lot of very negative influence, and it's meant to cause negative emotions within you. And then there's even a deeper level to where they're trying to seed events. So by getting enough people to think a thought, as I've talked in many things, how does manifestation work? By what you think, what you say, and what you do. So if I watch something, and your emotion behind it for that matter, right? So your emotion really draws it. So if I think something, but I've got a strong sense of emotion behind it, that thought has an amazing power, and it certainly is created quicker. So if you look at the way the news media tends to work, as a great example, they'll put a story out there that's meant to cause some sort of thought, and then generally, oftentimes, some form of fear behind it. Well, that energy mix creates the environment that they're telling you about. So then down the road, when something happens, say like a mass shooting or whatever the case is, a lot of times, if you look back a few days from some of these events, you'll notice that these things were talked about prior, or immediately after the event, they take advantage of that energy and try to usher in changes, and I don't want to debate the changes, because if you're against guns, cool. If you're not against guns, cool. I don't really care what side of that you're on, frankly. I don't think the gun is the issue. I think it's the person that kills people with it. And that could be cops, who are okay, supposedly, but when they kill people, that's not all right? Or anybody killing anyone that really doesn't necessarily need to be killed. So I think it's not the weapon that does the damage as much as the person wielding it. If you make guns illegal, that guy's just going to grab a club and beat someone with it, or grab a knife and stab somebody with it. You can't legislate all of the evil or all of the possible weapons from the planet. You can't do it. In fact, it reminds me of a great story when I was in martial arts when I was younger, and I think this is worth bringing up just from the sake of it's just good to know. But I had my martial arts teacher. We were helping him clean, and we'd get free lessons. Me and my best friend were in the class together. And we'd go down and we'd help clean the dojo, and he had a lot of mirrors, so we'd clean the mirrors and all that. Well, he had this rag on the ground from where we were cleaning the mirrors, and he says, "Do you see any weapons around?" And me and my buddy look around, and we're like, "No." And he reaches down and grabs the rag and flings it up, and almost like he's going to, hit me in the crotch with it, essentially, right? And he's like, and he flings it up and he stops and kind of gives a little snap right at the end. Didn't hit me, didn't hurt me, but made it very obvious what he was demonstrating, which is, and he even said it, there's always something around that can be used as a weapon. Always. It's just an issue of how badly do you need one and what are you willing to do. So again, it's not so much let's look at legislating anything that could possibly make other things happen. Let's raise the energy on this planet so those things don't need to happen anymore. Let's take the power away from the dark-minded souls Let's demonstrate to them a more loving, kind, and appropriate energy and environment in life. I know a lot of people are like, oh, that airy-fairy stuff doesn't change anything. And I say, no, it does, in fact, change a lot. When you stop focusing on things in your own life that are negative, you stop seeing them in your own life. They might exist in other parts of the world, but you yourself are not experiencing it. By you removing that experience from your life, you make that much easier to remove from the world's life because that energy's not there anymore. You're not a part of that. That's how we make the difference. We focus on the positives. We start to realize by studying some of the things that are coming out, the disclosure, all these other things that I brought up, that the world is changing, that we are winning this war. It's not even a war anymore. We actually technically won. It's an issue of seeing the rest of the cards fall is really where we're at. So continue to keep that positive thought in your mind. Continue to keep the idea that we are doing better, that we are increasing who we were, the difference between who I am right now and who I'm going to be in a week. I'm going to be an even more caring, more kind, more loving, more able to see all these positive things than I was the week prior. So we're going to be thankful. We're going to be grateful for all we have. We're going to take this time at Thanksgiving at the end of the month to really be with our family and love each other and think of love. So maybe you don't love all the people that you're hanging out with because you're kind of in the middle of a transition in your life. Then think of the one you do love. Think of those you do love. Be that feeling. Be that love. And you will start to draw that into your life, especially if you're grateful for it. Gratitude is the most powerful of emotions that you can feel to help manifest. Let's notice all the changes that are happening out there. Let's be a part of this. And again, is this month the month? I doubt it. Is next month? I don't know. But I do think sometime next year, we're going to have some really amazing things that are going to be stuck in our face that we're going to be like, wow, I did not know that. That is so cool. So any number of things are going to happen to kind of demonstrate. This is definitely getting closer to it this month especially. So keep holding on to that. Keep loving. Keep being kind to one another. Keep looking forward. Don't get too caught up in some of the difficulties that are happening right now. Everything's transitory, and everything's really meant to help spur us into the next level, the next step. So keep these things in mind. Allow this month to help grow us because some amazing stuff is coming. I can feel it. I can see it. And in a lot of cases, I could even tell you what some of it is. It's definitely getting close because there's too much of it that's becoming very, very clear. And that usually doesn't happen until it's very real. So let's give it some time. Let's enjoy. Let's be good to everyone. Be kind and love all. And try to help even the least of us. What you do for the least of me, you do for you. What you do for the least of my people, you do for me. I think a really wise man had quoted that one time, and I think that's very worth listening to. It's Dan RadioStyle. This is the November 2015 update, and I think we've got, like I said, a very exciting month coming. Feel free to contact me, send any questions or comments or anything to spiritradiodanstyle@gmail.com. And I'd be more than happy to answer your questions, do a show on it, whatever you've got in mind. And we're going to be doing more of these shows. And I'm really starting to lean towards talking a little bit more about some of this disclosure stuff. Without getting too into the crazy, I still want to start touching into the crazy a lot more because I think it's very important to start getting us prepared for messages that are coming. And I think some of the role that I can play in this is to help bring some of this to the forefront. So the thoughts in your mind, even though you may not agree with me or you might think I'm totally crazy for bringing it up, but then a month down the road when a news story pops up and talks about it, or 2 weeks down the road some random person walks up to you and starts talking about it, and you see the coincidence for what it is, then I've done my job. I'm okay with anybody thinking I'm crazy. But what I realize is I'm doing what I think is right, and I believe in this, and it's tripped me out how many people have come back to me and said, wow, you brought up this thing, and then like 3 days later, X happens. I can't control any of that. I have no idea how that works. All I know is generally when I follow my heart, follow my feelings, and try to do things right, and certainly by no means do I ever want to put myself in any sort of place where I'm implying that I'm better than anyone, because that's a no. That's a big fat no. Like, I'm just as screwed up as everybody else, right? So I just have been practicing some of this junk a while, and I'm a little more comfortable in this environment. But by no means am I any different than any one of you that are out there. So keep listening to your heart, keep listening to your soul, and get ready for a lot of these things that are coming, and it's going to be pretty exciting. It's going to be life-changing for sure. All this is coming. December update will be coming, and like I said, I'll probably squeeze in a couple more shows, but this has been another wonderful episode. I hope, anyway, wonderful. It's been another wonderful episode of Dan Radio Style. Enjoy. Thank you.